Good afternoon, my name is Nick Polishkin, I'm broker with Very Realty. Welcome to Very Realty Real Estate Contracts tutorial. Today we will review Florida contract to lease and full lease agreement, and we will focus on parts which can be edited and customized. For everybody, I'm not a lawyer and this is not a legal advice. This is for information purposes only. If you have questions about legal parts of the contract, please contact your attorney. After this tutorial, please make sure you read the contract on your own a few times and watch tutorial again after that. Your clients will ask questions about lease agreements and contracts. Thank you for watching. Email me if you have any questions. Okay, so we're going to look for the contract. So at first, let's open up a dot loop. That's the system which we internally use. Maybe with other companies, agents using other platforms, but we prefer dot loop. They have a new interface now too. So at first, to create a lease, if you have clients who wants to, let's say, rent an apartment, what we first do, we will create a loop. So click add a loop. Name the loop by the property address. So let's go to MLS. Matrix. Login. And we will take one of our company's listings which are active. So let's go to active. This is good. It will be a good example. It's a rental, a villa condo. So let's take a look at it. So this is the property. So let's say, for example, we have a client who would like to rent it. They are ready to pay full price for a year lease, and it's specified here that this lease is for year long. It's annual lease. Let's scan through the listing. Minimum lease period for 365. Moving cost is $4,200. Application fee is $100. This is the listing broker information. Compensation is 1.5 months over here, by whom it's listed. So let's go back to our file management platform and create a contract to lease for this property. So let's name the file by the address. And it pulled up some of the listings which are within MLS. Let's check if, but this is different brokerage. Let's see if we can find our listing. Probably because it's new, it hasn't been posted yet. So let's keep it. We'll have to input all information by hand. So continue. Also, we have a templates here within our brokerage, which will tell you and preload the files which you need to have in order to present an offer or present a contract to lease, or if you're working on a listing. So let's try to scan through these items here and find what we need. So we have lease representing tenant, condominium or townhouse. Select that, click continue. You can upload a picture if you like. Or you can just skip this part, because if you have a listing, yes, you can upload a picture, but with the lease and if you're making an offer, I mean, it's not necessarily, it's optional. So then we click done. We have a loop created. So type is lease, status, is we're working on an offer, so it's pre-offer. Price, we will be making an offer at $1,400 per month. Enter occupancy. Our client is looking to move in, let's say, on May 1st. So we select the date and then click on View Loop. So within the loop, we have three options. Either use a template, upload the document, or you can attach the files you need to an email and send them directly to this folder. So what the option we'll choose will be for the templates. We go to templates, then we go to Miami Association of Realtors documents, which are preloaded within our file management platform. Now we look for contract to lease. Here we go. This is standard Florida form approved by Miami Association of Realtors. So we import it to the file. Now let's add people to the file who are our tenants, and also we need to add the listing agent over here. So first let's add the listing agent. It will be Olga Kim. Copy and paste name, then email, role, select a role. Olga, she is a listing agent. Then we add a person. Then let's add our tenants. Let's say it will be John Smith, and email is John Smith at gmail.com. Role, tenant, add person. So now we have two persons in file, and we go back to our contract to lease. Let's open it up. So we have our roles, which we can put here. Leasing agent Olga Kim. Landlord, we'll find out who is the landlord shortly. Tenant, John Smith. Search by address or MLS number. So let's try one more time. We have MLS number A104 51 413. Here we go, we have it. So we can actually import data for this listing, and it will autofill some of the information which we need. So prospective landlord, first item on the contract to lease, and this form is similar to like an offer to purchase, but in our case this is a lease agreement, so it's an offer for lease. It has 3 pages, so let's start working on it. So first, prospective landlord, how we can find who is the landlord. We go back to MLS, click on folio number, and it will open up for us the South Florida MLS IMAP, and here we can see who is the owner. The owner is Sunny Apple LLC Corporation, so we take that, copy and paste. So this is a landlord. Now we have prospective tenant, who is John Smith, and Sunny Apple LLC and John Smith agreed to execute lease agreement no later than, and we put the date. Let's say we will give the landlord to make a decision by Monday by 6 p.m. for the property described below. The list will include the terms set forth in paragraph 3 to 12 of this contract to lease and other mutually agreeable terms. Landlord or tenant, landlord if left blank, so landlord will be by default, will prepare the lease. In our case, for practice, we will prepare the tenant agreement as well in the same training, so I'll click here. If you leave it blank, it will be landlord who will be preparing the lease, the full lease agreement, because this is just the beginning. This is the contract to lease. This is an offer. Following the offer, there is a 17-page full lease agreement. So let's move forward. Deposit. With the intention of entering into a lease with landlord, tenant has paid. For example, let's assume that John Smith brought the check to the office yesterday for $1,200 deposit to our escrow account, and we will have to state it here. Deposit to Vera Realty LLC escrow holder, and we will specify that is non-interest bearing account. Moving forward, upon execution of the lease by both parties, the parties authorize the deposit holder to transfer the deposit according to landlord's instructions, and landlord will credit the deposit to the money due under paragraph 5 below. Number 3, we have a property address, which was imported by .loop from MLS, but if it did not, we can just copy and paste it. Now going back, the property will be unfurnished or furnished. So go back to MLS, and you should know that before you making contract to lease and when you already looked at the property, because your tenant will tell you up front if they want to rent furnished or unfurnished. So in our case, we have it unfurnished, and John also requested unfurnished place because he has a bunch of furniture which he will be moving with, so we put unfurnished. The property will be used for only residential purposes and occupied by only tenant and following persons. So we'll put John Smith and Mary Smith. We'll put in parentheses spouse of John. She can also be on the lease over here. Depends how the tenant wants to request it, but you have to state everybody who will be living on premises. If it's kids, or if John and Mary they had kids, I also would have inputted here. Lease term. So the lease will begin from May 1st in 1 year, which will be year 2019. To the April 30th of 2019. Usually the lease will begin on the 1st and will end on the last day of the month. Money due before occupancy. Tenant will pay the sum of the amount in accordance with this paragraph before occupying the property. Tenant will not be entitled to move in or to keys to the property until all money due before occupancy has been paid. If no date is specified below, then funds will be due before occupancy. We can look it up also in MLS. So move-in cost is $4,200, which equals to 3 monthly payments, which is first, last, and security deposit. So we can copy and paste that amount over here. And down below we need to specify for what this amount is exactly for. So first month rent, which is $1,400, due May 1st, day of the move-in. Advance rent for month off. We don't have to write it, only if the tenant is prepaying in other months. If he is prepaying only the last month the rent, there is a separate field here. Last month's rent plus applicable taxes, also $1,400, due May 1st. And lastly is security deposit, which is also $1,400. Also will be delivered on May 1st. And remember, we stated below that with intention to entering into lease, tenant has paid $1,200, so they're already in the escrow. So on the day of the move-in, the escrow will release $1,200 to the agent who is preparing the lease and who is working with the tenant, and it will be incorporated into this amount. So the tenant on the May 1st will need to bring a difference, which is $3,000. We take $4,200 minus $1,200, $3,000 cashier's check, money order, or any workable source of funds which can be cashed the same day. Usually it's a cashier's check, money order, or if landlord and the listing agent specify any other means of payment, this also can be discussed, and if tenant agrees, that can be done as well. Security deposit for association. Some associations and residential complexes and apartment complexes, they require the security deposit for association, which can be equal to 1 month rent. So if it's the case, it has to be filled out here. Pet deposit. John and Mary don't have pets, so it's not required. Other, if there is let's say cleaning fee, which we'll have here of $150, also due on May 1st. Then moving to the paragraph 2, deposit will be credited as follows. So the deposit will be going towards the security deposit. And this is from that part. Then we're going to rent payments, taxes, and charges. Tenant will pay total rent for the lease term of, we need to take the amount of $1,400 and multiply it by 12. So let's see. 1,400 multiplied by 12, we'll have $16,800. This is the total amount which tenants will pay, excluding taxes. Tenant will also pay total taxes on the rent when applicable in the amount of. This has to be verified with the listing agent if they want the tenant to pay taxes, additional taxes, or they're paying the taxes by themselves. This is something you will ask the listing agent. Tenant will pay the rent, including taxes, when applicable, as follows. So in our case, John requested payments to be made monthly on the first day of the month, if left blank, in the amount of $1,400, which is monthly payment. Another option is payment in full. Some people prefer to make payments or pay upfront the whole amount. Some don't, so it's up to discussion. But in this contract, tenant give you the detail how he wants to make payments, and this is how he will be making payments. Pets. So we'll say prohibited. Smoking prohibited. This is also up to landlord, but we can check the MLS. Sometimes if they have any remarks. One bedroom, pool, gym, clubhouse, gated community, one parking, laundry is on the floor, no pets. So pets are prohibited, and this is a very important point. Some tenants will have pets, and you need to look before you even show the listing to them that sometimes landlords, they have allergies or other situations where they just can't have pets on their premises. So let's go back to that loop. So pets prohibited, smoking prohibited. Utilities. Tenant will pay for all utility services during the lease term, connection charges, and deposits for activating existing utility connections to the property, except for sometimes within the communities or residential complexes, the water will be included. This is also to be verified. In our case, let's see what's if any services are included. Rent payment includes cable TV, water and sewer. So we can just copy that and paste it back. So tenant will pay for all utility services during the lease term, connection charges and deposits to the property except for, so cable TV is included, landlord is paying for it, and water and sewer is included, so landlord is covering that. So tenants will be responsible for electricity, other services if they prefer. So landlord will be responsible for maintenance and repair of the property except for, so here we need to specify. Sometimes small maintenance are responsibility of the tenant, so we can say the repairs for more than $100, which tenant agrees to maintain and repair. So if it's a light bulb or if it's a very small issue, tenant will be taking care of that. If it's a big issue, landlord or his insurance company or his maintenance, maybe landlord has a maintenance agreement, so that already will be landlord's responsibility if it's more than $100. Service member status. Is the prospective tenant service member as defined in Florida Statutes 250.01? If yes, landlord must provide a written approval or denial of tenant's application. In our case, John is not a service member, so we put no. If they are, then we put yes. And in case of denial, there is a certain document which has to be provided by landlord. The following real estate brokerages are only brokers involved in the procurement of this contract to lease and shall be paid commissions in the amounts set forth below upon full execution of lease. So we have listing brokerage already was inputted by the dot loop and from MLS. Commission, let's go back to the listing. Buyer agent compensation is, so for the representative of the tenants, it's 1/2 of the month commission, and for transaction broker, which is in our case Vera Realty, and also buying agent is also Vera Realty, as I'm preparing the contract for myself. So transaction brokerage will be compensation of 1.5 months, so we can copy and paste that back to our offer. 1.5 months. Same with the transaction tenant brokerage, and it's also in our case Vera Realty also, as I'm the broker for the Vera Realty and I'm presenting working on an offer. Renewals. Landlord shall pay to the brokers a lease renewal lease extension commission equal to or greater of 5% of the gross rent for such renewal, extension, or the amount set forth in landlord's listing or other brokerage agreement with the listing broker. This shall be due upon the execution of the renewal extension. This provision shall survive any subsequent lease between landlord and tenant. So we put 5% total, or in case of landlord is ready and willing to pay the renewal, I mean, in total it can be 10%, or it can be again 1 month. So we can actually specify here, cross it out and put 1 month. Sometimes landlords are not willing to pay the renewal commission fee. So this is something we need to discuss with the listing agent and with the landlord for this property. I mean, we can present it with the renewal commission fee, but it can be negotiated. So let's put 10% of the gross lease, which will be a little bit more than 1 month, but again, it's up to landlord. Sales. In the event that the subject property is sold to any tenant or occupant identified in the lease, or any member of their immediate family or any entity in which they have an interest, during the term of the lease, or any renewal, extension, or new lease term, landlord shall pay the brokers to be split equally, a sales commission equal to the greater of. So we can put 6% over here, as it's a condominium, and it's there's no standard commission percentages, but 6% is fair. 6% of the sales price or the amount set forth in landlord's listing or other brokerage agreement with listing broker. This provision shall survive any subsequent agreement between landlord and tenant. Association approval. Where applicable, the lease will be contingent upon condominium cooperative homeowners association approval, and usually it's tenant who pays the non-refundable application fee, and the amount will be specified in MLS. Application fee is $100, so we put $100 and make application for association approval by if John wants to move on in the apartment on May 1st, they need to really work on this application as soon as they can, because sometimes application approvals can take up to 2 weeks. So let's specify by Tuesday, April 17th. If such approval is not obtained before beginning of the lease term, either party may terminate the lease by a written notice to the other at any time before association approval, and tenant will receive a return of all deposits paid. If the lease is not terminated, rent will be abated until association approval is obtained. Additional terms. Notice to landlord and tenant. You or your attorney must make any amendments to the lease form. In our case, we don't have any additional terms, so we'll just move forward. Background credit reference check. Please read it on your own. This is all standard. Failure to perform. And then the last page. Here we will have a signatures. One is for John Smith, which already we have his name here. Then we'll put his email already here. And landlord will leave blank, because this will be responsibility of listing agent to have them sign it. Also, each page has to be initialed by both the landlord and the tenant. So we have initials on page 1, 2, and 3. So when you're ready and you look through your contract to lease, make sure you have everything in place, everything how you discussed with the tenant. In our case, it's John. Click Save. And then we click Share. First with John. And we also want to attach it as a PDF and send a note. Hello, John. Please review the contract to lease by following the link below or opening an attached PDF file. Please ask me any questions if you have in regards to the offer. To sign it electronically, please follow the link below. Thank you, Nick. Then you click Share, and John will receive it. He will receive an email which will state this wording, and we'll have a link in the middle where he can click, and it will take him to the document where he can sign it electronically, and you will be notified as soon as he signs it. Okay, so let's assume he signed it, and then we have all the signatures from him. Then we need to share it with the listing agent, Olga. So we'll say, hi Olga, please see signed contract to lease for your listing at, let's go back to the MLS. I will copy and paste the address. Maybe Olga has many listings and she will get confused, so please make sure you include the address on what you're making an offer. Please see signed contract to lease for your listing at. Let me know what landlord decides as soon as you can. Thank you. And we click share, and it will go, and also we can attach a PDF file. Click share, and it will go to Olga, and she will present it to her landlord. And if landlord signs the contract to lease, Olga, if you leave one field blank here in the beginning, or if you put tenant, you can start working on the full lease agreement, which we'll be reviewing next. So let's move on. Congratulations, you finished the first part of the lease tutorial. Now let's move on to the second part. Let's review the full lease agreement, which will be the final document which has to be prepared and signed by all parties before the lease commencement. Usually a landlord or landlord's agent will prepare the lease agreement. In our case, for the purpose of training, in the contract to lease we stated that tenant or tenant's agent will prepare the lease agreement. Let's review it. Again, I'm not a lawyer and this is not legal advice. This is for information purposes only. If you have questions about legal parts of the contract, please contact an attorney. After you finish watching it, please email me with any questions. Read the contract a few times again, and hopefully you will understand it and it will help you in future work with your clients. So we'll go back to our file, 17570 Atlantic Boulevard. We have it also pulled up here in MLS. So let's say the contract to lease was accepted by the landlord, signed and initialed by the landlord on all 3 pages, and now we can prepare the lease agreement. So here we click add document, we go into templates, then we go to Miami Association of Realtors and we type lease, and it will say residential lease for single family home or duplex, and we need to find another one for multi-family. So here we go, residential lease for multi-family rental housing. So click here, copy, okay. Then we have this file here in our loop, so click on it to open it up. Then we can pre-fill some of the information. So we have information on listing agent, tenant is John Smith, the property address, financial, the amount of rent, security deposit, listing information. Property includes Latif, so it's unfurnished, so there's no furniture to be stated, and we can click autofill. Then we'll start with the non-lawyer disclosure. Please read it carefully on your own. Basically, this is instructions to licensee. Before you begin to complete the next form, you must give a non-lawyer disclosure to the landlord or tenant for whom you are filing in the blanks. If you're filing in the blanks for both landlord and tenant, complete 2 non-lawyer disclosures and give 1 to each. Insert your name in the first 5 blank name spaces and sign below. Have the landlord or tenant whom you are assisting complete a provision regarding his ability to read English, and have him sign below. Give this completed disclosure to the landlord or tenant as appropriate. Keep a copy of this completed disclosure and all forms you give to the landlord or tenant in your files for at least 6 years. So again, according to the instructions to us, to licensees, we need to put our names everywhere on this page. So I put my name down. Can just copy and paste it. Landlord or tenant. So representing tenant, John can speak English and read English, so we can state that I can read English. If your tenant or landlord is not speaking English, so you need to put the bullet point here. I cannot read English, but this notice was read to me by, again, your name in language. So language, if it's Spanish, it's in Spanish. If it's in Russian, it's Russian, and which your tenant or landlord will understand. Then tenant has to sign here, and landlord has to sign, and your signature here as well. So this has to be signed to me and signed by me. Then we're moving forward to the residential lease. It's a full lease agreement for apartment or unit in multi-family rental housing other than a duplex, including a mobile home, condominium, or cooperative, for a term not exceed 1 year. And we have a term of 1 year. So this agreement fits perfectly for our needs, and it's also created by Florida Association of Realtors and by their legal department. Also, see this note, please. It's not to be used for commercial, agricultural, or other residential property. It's only for these purposes. Warning: it's very important to read all of the lease carefully. The lease imposes important legal obligations. An asterisk or a blank space indicates a provision where a choice or decision must be made by the parties. No changes or additions to this form may be made unless a lawyer is consulted. So we begin with number 1, term and parties. This is the lease for a period of 12 months, beginning on, we have the lease beginning on May 1st and ending on April 30th next year. There we go. Name of the owner of the property. So again, we go to MLS, click on folio number. It will pull up IMAP, and here we have Sunny Apple LLC. Paste over here. John Smith already pre-filled. In the lease, the owner, wherever one or more of the property, is called landlord. All persons to whom the property is leased are called tenant. So here we will need information from our listing agent on landlord telephone number and landlord's email address. And for John, we have to have his phone number definitely, so we can put it here. +1 305 833 3303. This is an example. This is actually our office phone number. So, but let's say it will be for John Smith. Property rented. A landlord leases to tenant apartment or unit number 215 in the building located at the address. This is 17570 Atlantic. Sometimes it copy the information or pre-fill it not in full, so we need to double check. So it's 17570 Atlantic Boulevard actually. So we put Atlantic Boulevard, known as name of the apartment or condominium. We have it in legal description, so we can copy that. Avila Condominium. Located in the city of Sunny Isles Beach, and this is the zip code, together with the following furniture and appliances. So we need to specify the furniture if it's furnished. In our case, it's unfurnished, and appliances which are included within the apartment. So let's see in the description. So it has dishwasher, microwave, and refrigerator. Probably it has a electrical or gas stove, but that has to be reconfirmed. Also need to verify about washer and dryer if they inside the unit or they are outside. Okay, moving forward. Common areas. Landlord grants to tenant permission to use during the lease term along with others the common areas and the building and the development of which premises are a part. Rent payments and charges. Tenant shall pay rent for the premises in an installment of $1,400 each on the first, as we stated in the contract to lease before, and each on the first day of each month. So this is a rental installment period as used in the lease shall be a month if rent is paid monthly and a week if rent is paid weekly. Tenant shall pay with each rent payment all taxes imposed on the rent by taxing authorities. The amount of taxes payable on the beginning date of the lease is, again, this is to be announced, TBA, to be confirmed with the leasing agent and with the landlord. If landlord will pay the taxes from that amount or it's additional, so this has to be confirmed. The amount of each installment of rent plus taxes as of the date of lease begins will put $400 because we assume that landlord will be paying taxes, but again this has to be reconfirmed. Landlord will notify tenant in the amount of the tax changes. Tenant shall pay the rent and all other charges required to be paid under the lease by cash, valid check, or money order. Landlord may appoint an agent to collect the lease payment and to perform landlord's obligations. First page, initials from the tenant and from the landlord when the agreement will be completed. In order for it to be executed and signed, it has to be initialed on every page as well. Unless this box is checked, the lease payments must be paid in advance beginning. So we check this box because we will be paying monthly, and there is no advanced payments. Next one, if tenancy starts on a day other than the first day of the month for the week as designated above, the rent shall be prorated from. So let's say if John would like to start the lease on the 15th, but paying on the 1st of the month. So then it will be prorated from May 15th to May 31st in the amount of, so this is half a month, or it can be calculated by day, let's say for $700, and shall be due in case if he would have wanted to begin the lease on the 15th, from the 15th. 30-day month. So if rent paid monthly, prorate on the 30-day month. So we can take 1,400 and divide by 30 times 15, so it's $700. Here we go. But in our case, this is just for an example. We don't have the lease starting in the middle of the month. John would like to move in on the 1st and paying on the 1st of each month. But now you know. Deposit, advance rent, and late charges. In addition to the lease payments described above, tenant shall pay the following. Check only those items that apply. Security deposit, that already been pre-filled. Advance rent in the amount of, so for the last month, periods of April Actually, advance rent amount of 1400 for the. We will need to include the first one too. So we'll put 2800 for the month of May 2018, April 2019. Pet deposit, there's no pets. Late charge. So late charge in the amount of $50 for each lease payment made more than 5 days after the date it is due. I mean, this is up to you and up to landlord. Landlord or listing agent for landlord will have maybe certain amount they have in mind, but because we preparing the contract for tenant, I think this is fair amount for both sides. I mean, it also will depend on other factors: the quality of apartment, the monthly payment. So, for example, if it's $10,000 per month, then obviously we will put at least $500 for each lease payment made more than 5 days. So, higher you go with the monthly price, higher the late fees and late charges. A bad check fee in the amount of also $50. If tenant makes any lease payment with a bad check. It says here not to exceed $20 or 5% of the lease payment, whichever is greater. So over here we'll take 5% from 1400, and it's actually $70. So we can put $70 here or keep it at 50. It's up to landlord as well. If tenant makes any lease payment with a bad check, landlord can require tenant to pay all future lease payments in cash or money order. Remember in the contract to lease we had cleaning fee, so we'll put here cleaning fee in the amount of $150. And to double check, you always can click save here, then go back to the main loop. Would you like to share? No, not yet. Then we go to contract to lease, and we have cleaning fee $150, payable on the 1st of May as well. And if you forgot some details and you already have contract to lease signed and you want to state to be on the same terms because landlord agreed to them, you can always go back and double check it. So we were on the second page, cleaning fees here. So then security deposits and advance rent. If tenant has paid the security deposit, advance rent, the following provisions apply. Please read it on your own, A, B, and C. Very important. Number 7, notices. Olga Kim is landlord agent. All notices to landlord and all lease payments must be sent to landlord's agent at, and you put what they advise you to, their office or their PO box or whichever address they want to use, but they need to be sure that they will be available at this address. In our case, Olga would like to use office address, so we can put Very Realty LLC, 3505 South Ocean Drive, Hollywood, Florida 33019. Unless landlord gives tenant written notice of a change, landlord's agent may perform inspections on behalf of landlord, subject to Article 12 below. All notices to landlord shall be given by certified mail, return receipt requested, or by hand delivery to landlord or landlord's agent. Any notice to tenant shall be given by certified mail, return receipt requested, or delivered to tenant at the premises. If tenant is absent from the premises, a notice to tenant may be given by leaving a copy of the notice at the premises. Number 8, this is standard wording here, so please read it on your own. Use of premises. Next few Paragraphs are customizable, so we will go over them. Unless this box is checked, landlord may adopt, modify, or repeal rules and regulations for the use of common areas and conduct on the premises during the lease term. All rules and regulations must be reasonable and in the best interest of the development in which the premises are located. So this is something to talk with landlord about, but in case of condominiums, we would leave it unchecked, because the condominium can change the regulations for the use of common areas of certain associations will have certain requirements, or they impose new rules and regulations, so we will keep this box unchecked, and the landlord will have to notify their tenant of these changes, because sometimes it will be very important changes, and tenants will have to follow the new rules, or for example of using the pool or using the gym, etc. Occasional overnight guests are permitted. An occasional overnight guest is one who does not stay more than, we'll put, 7 nights in any calendar month. Landlord written approval is requested to allow anyone else to occupy the premises. So unless this box is checked or pet deposit has been paid, tenant may not keep or allow pets or animals on the premises without landlord's approval or the pet or animal in writing. So landlord is not allowing pets at the premises at all, so we don't have to check, and the pet deposit has not been paid. Unless this box is checked, no smoking is permitted in the premises. Yes, absolutely no smoking on premises, and this was also stated in the contract to lease. Tenant shall not keep any dangerous or flammable items that might increase the danger or fire or damage on the premises without landlord's consent. Tenant shall not create any environmental hazards on or about the premises. Tenant shall not destroy, deface, damage, impair, or remove any part of the premises belonging to landlord, nor permit any person to do so. Tenant may not make any alteration or improvements to the premises without first obtaining landlord written consent to the alteration or improvement. However, unless this box is checked, tenant may hang pictures and install window treatments in the premise without landlord consent. So usually pictures are fine, so we don't have to check this box. Tenant must act or require other person on the premises to act in a manner that doesn't reasonably disturb any neighbors or constitute a breach of the peace. And maintenance, basically here, number A standard, please read it on your own. It's about landlord's required maintenance. Letter B is elective maintenance. Fill in each blank space in the section with landlord or tenant to show who will take care of the item noted. If a space is left blank, landlord will be required to take care of that item, or assure that association takes care of the items if the premises are located in a condominium. So smoke detectors, it's usually landlord. Extermination of rats, mice, roaches, and wood destroying organisms and bed bugs. Sometimes landlord, sometimes tenant. We'll put tenant in our case. Locks and keys. This is landlord. Clean and safe condition of outside areas. This is landlord. Garbage removal and outside garbage receptacles. Landlord. Running water. Landlord. Hot water. Landlord. Lawn. Landlord. Heat. Landlord. Air conditioning. Landlord. Furniture. This is tenant because it's unfurnished. Appliances. Landlord. Fixtures. Landlord. Pool. Landlord association. Heating and air conditioning filters. This is tenant. Usually filters, heating, AC filters need to be changed every month, and it's usually tenant's responsibility to do so. Landlord may provide the filters or may not. This is up to discussion. Other items, if there is any special conditions, or there's a fish tank maybe, or something else, and this is also, there's an option left here. Tenant's responsibility, if any indicated above, shall include major maintenance or major replacement of equipment. Landlord shall be responsible for major maintenance or major replacement of equipment, except for equipment for which tenant has accepted responsibility for major maintenance or major replacement in the previous paragraph. Major maintenance, major replacement means repair or replacement in the costs more than we had written $100 in the contract to lease, but just let's go back and double check. Would like to share? Not yet. Here we go. We are opening up contract to lease, and we'll check about repairs. Yes. So here it says, no, this is association approval. See where the repairs were. Here, maintenance. Landlord will be responsible for maintenance and repair of the property except for repairs for more than $100. So everything more than $100, landlord will be taken care of. So now we go back to our full lease agreement. So we have $100 here as well. So next page, page 5. Please read this part on your own. Number 10, utilities. Tenant shall pay all charges for hookup, connection, and deposit for providing all utilities and utility services to the premises during the lease term, except. So here we need to state which utilities will be paid by landlord. So because tenant shall pay all charges for example, electricity. In our case, we had, as you remember in the listing, stated that water and sewer and cable are included in the lease. So we'll put water, sewer, and cable, which landlord agrees to provide at landlord expense. Service member, this is standard part. Number 12 is also, there's no edits can be done, so please read it carefully by yourself. Prohibited acts by landlord, casualty damage, defaults and remedies. Number 16, assignment and subleasing. Unless this box is checked, the tenant may not assign the lease or sublease all or any part of the premises without first obtaining landlord's written approval. So if this one is checked, then a tenant may assign. In our case, the lease will not be assignable. Number 17, risk of loss, subordination, liens. The interest of the lender shall not be subject to liens for improvements by the tenants as provided in section 713.10 Florida statutes. Tenant shall notify all parties performing work on the premises at tenant's request that the lease doesn't allow any liens to attach to landlord interest. So this part about liens, just need to know what the liens are and what does it mean in case if tenant, your client or tenant will ask you what this part means. So please read it carefully. Approval contingency. If applicable, the lease is conditioned upon approval of tenant by the association that governs the premises. In our case, yes, it's contingent. Any application fee required by an association shall be paid by tenant. If such approval is not obtained prior to commencement of the lease, either party may terminate the lease by written notice to the other given at any time prior to approval by the association. And if lease is terminated, tenant shall receive return of deposit specified in Article 5. If made. If the lease is not terminated, rent shall abate until the approval is obtained from the association. Tenant agrees to use due diligence in applying for association approval and to comply with the requirements for obtaining approval. In this case, so next one is tenant shall pay security deposit required by the association if applicable. So in our case, because tenant already paying first month, last month, and security, landlord said that they're willing to pay the association deposit. Sometimes association deposit will be equal to the monthly rental amount, or can be a little less or a little more. this has to be verified with the landlord. So please ask listing agent if you're not sure if there is a deposit for association and who will be paying it. Renewal and extension. And why association required the deposit, going back one step, it's because tenants will be using the premises like the pool, the community room, the library, or any amenities which this complex has, and the association wants to keep the deposit in case something will be damaged, or they will be notified that there is a incident occurred, and association will use this deposit to cover the expenses which they had in order to repair or to maintain, and only in these cases. Renewal and extension. The lease can be renewed or extended only by a written agreement signed by both landlord and tenant, but in no event may the total lease term exceed 1 year. A new lease is required for each year. So if the tenant would like to renew and to start the new lease for another year, the same document needs to be signed with updated terms and dates. Lead-based paint. Check and complete if the dwelling was built before January 1st of 1978. Lead warning statement. When used in this article, the term lessor refers to landlord and term lessee refers to tenant. So we need to check when it was built. Let's go back. So it was built in 1973. So it was built prior to 1978. So lead-based paint disclosure has to be provided. Because housing built before 1978 may contain lead-based paint. Lead from paint chips and dust can pose health hazards if not managed properly. So presence of lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards, check. Known or unknown. So this has to be reconfirmed with the listing agent. In our case, the landlord says they don't have any knowledge, so we put lessor has no knowledge of lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards in the housing. Lessor has provided the lessee with all available records and reports pertaining to lead-based paint or lead-based paint hazards. They don't have records, so we don't have to check here, but if they do have records, please make sure you checked it and the records has to be provided. Lessor has no reports or records, so here we check that one. Check that one out. Then initials, both lessor and lessee or landlord and tenant will be initialing here. Acknowledgement. So here is lessee acknowledgement and also agent acknowledgement. So agent need to initial here as well. Agent has informed the lessor of a lessor's obligations under 42 U.S.C. 4852D and is aware of his or her responsibility to ensure compliance. Certification of accuracy. The following parties have reviewed the information above and certified to the best of their knowledge that the information provided by the signatory is true and accurate. So here we have lessee signature, in our case it's John. Here we have lessor signature, and if it was 2 tenants on the lease, this will be another lessee signature, and both agents have to sign here as well. Landlord, tenant, initial on that page too. So, and to make sure, let's save it before we go back. We don't share it yet. We will add right away to our file from the templates the lead-based paint pamphlet. So pre-1978 lead-based paint, and we will share it with our tenant. So you definitely need to make sure you shared it with John and that he shared it with his wife Mary. and have them send an email to you that they acknowledge the receipt and they have both read it. So now let's go back, and we're almost done here. So we stopped at page 6. No, actually 6. Yeah, page 6. So continue to page 7. Here we have signatures. So landlord need to sign here. Tenant, in our case John, need to sign here. If somebody assisted, like lawyer or consultant, their information has to be on that page, down on these lines. Early termination fee. So this is very important part. For landlord, is important that, let's say after 4 months John would like to move out, so landlord would like to have liquidated damages and early termination fee. Usually it's 2 months. So in our case, because John already have security deposit and last month prepaid, it will be the same amount, so $2,800 as an early termination fee. And landlord, tenant need to sign here, initial in the bottom. Then page 8 is all standard, please read it on your own. Page 9 standard. Page 10. The landlord or the landlord agent may disburse advance rents from the deposit account to the landlord's benefit when the advance rental period commences and without notice to the tenant. For all other deposits, upon the vacating of the premises for termination of the lease, if the landlord doesn't intend to impose a claim on the security deposit, the landlord shall have 15 days to return the security deposit together with the interest if otherwise required, or the landlord shall have 30 days to give the tenant written notice by certified mail to the tenant's last known mailing address of his or her own intention to impose a claim on this deposit and the reason for imposing the claim. The notice shall contain a statement in substantially the following form. This is a notice of my intention to impose the claim damages in the amount. So basically this is an example in case if there are damages after the tenant vacated the premises. If landlord is not charging any additional or anything from security deposit, landlord need to return security deposit within 15 days to tenants. If there are damages after tenants vacated the premises, let's say they damaged the appliance, one of the appliances, or they were smoking in the apartment. So this all has to be assessed by licensed professionals and technicians, and the bill has to be provided to the tenant, and you have as a landlord 30 days to send the notice to tenants that you're imposing the claim for security deposit. This is very important part. Please make sure you know about it. Next page is standard. Number 13 is also standard. But please make sure you read it thoroughly. I don't want to go over every item with you, not too late to take too long of your time, because this agreement was prepared by the Association of Realtors and by Association of Realtors legal department. So next item, which is customizable. I agree is provided in the rental agreement to pay an amount that does not exceed 2 months' rent as a liquidated damages or an early termination fee if I elect to terminate the rental agreement and the landlord waives the right to seek additional rent beyond the month in which the landlord retakes possession. So in our case, tenant agrees, and you need to explain tenant what it is. Again, here's also 2 months, $2,800. Next page is all standard. Some items taken from Florida statutes. Page 17. So, and finally page 18, which is the last page. Also make sure you have initials on every page. So when you save it, make sure you have the first and last initial already here, and then you can share it with John. Click share. When John signs, you will get notification that John signed, and then you can send to listing agent Olga, and she will share with her client, landlord, who will review the contract and sign it as well. And after that, that means the lease agreement is fully signed, and the tenant and landlord can move on with the lease. Thank you so much for listening and watching. I know this was a long training, but again, this is very important. Please make sure you review both documents again, read them thoroughly, all pages, and let me know if you have any questions. Email me, send me a message in our CRM system. Thank you so much. See you later.